Right, so pro-democracy protests in Eswatini have entered a fourth day now. The unrest continues despite a ban on marches imposed by the Monarch. Campaigners, mostly the youth, began their protests on Friday, calling for political reform. They also want to elect their own prime minister. Political parties are banned from taking part in elections in the tiny kingdom. The king chooses the prime minister, cabinet, as well as top judges and civil servants. Some news reports have suggested that King Mswati III has actually left the country as a result of this unrest. Let's get your sense of what else we know now. For the latest developments, bring in Communist Party of Swaziland, or Eswatini, General Secretary Kenneth Kunene, who joins us via our video link. But Kunene, thanks for making time for us. Great to speak to you, even though you're in Mpumalanga today. This is an issue that's been bubbling under for quite some time. From your vantage point, what's led to this tipping over?
Thank you so much, Ayanda. Thank you so much to your viewers. Actually, the protest that has been going on, actually the struggle has been going on probably since the 1973 decree, when political parties were banned, and just taken different waves. But what happened recently was then when the youth, in the beginning of last year and early this year, pronounced very clearly that now it is time to end this dictatorship, and they were calling for democracy now. And in this space of time, then we have seen an escalation of protests. People who started to build up on the communities to organize and raise their anger and galvanize much strength and more confidence to the people to stand up and voice their views about how they want to govern. But the aim is to end this dictatorship and create a democracy. So in the last 3 days, I think the actions have been carried out strongly and taking place in the communities and also coming down to the towns. And of recent now, the youth have shown much determination to the call for democracy, to the end of the autocracy, and for the establishment of an ideal system of democracy, which is a democratic republic, which they are saying it very clearly that the only route to allow the regime to go out would be through the route of the republic. They're saying no more to the constitutional monarchy. They are saying no more to the whole era of the family ruling other people. But they want every citizen to be independent, to be able to have a right to stand without having been oriented with other values, which may necessarily impose them extra values to the others. So that is the cry now, that is the effort now that's been raised, and will go on and on until the end of the objective, which is bringing in democracy in Swaziland. But we have seen last night that police, the army joined in and they were reinforced and from the air, and they were also on the ground forces shooting randomly at protesters, injuring some, and some probably have been reported injured. And we have learned just during the day, Mswati left the country, and we were told he had left to something where I think he's still there. And the family last night was also joining him, and he flew out of the country at night. But what is more important now is that the violence has been unleashed, brutality by the regime and the army, through the army, has been unleashed to the people, and more people are wounded, but the protest and action goes on. There's still much determination. It will only end in victory. It will only end when democracy is achieved. Nothing will deter us.
Yeah.
I think the youth is that they are the last generation to live a youth life under oppression, under the Mswati dictatorship.
So, Kenneth, you're able to confirm for us that, in fact, King Mswati III has left Eswatini, and you say he's in Sandton?
The only possibility of confirmation that is only on his location, but because of several occasions when the masses rise up, he finds a way of leaving the country, and he normally does that. Last time he left and then started now to define where he was really, but normally the family leaves. But what has been confirmed by other members who are close to the family was that he has left. But any confirmation can only be pronounced by him. But the only thing that you must say is that he is the one who has unleashed the army, but the other reason, he was not even openly declaring that war. Wherever he has been sitting, wherever he is hiding, I think he has made this clear to us that he has committed to a war against the people. But who is about, I think it is up to him to rise up. But the only thing that we are expecting from him is to declare the decree null and void and unban political parties and also dissolve his government, his parliament. I think that's the only thing that will change. We are not interested in what he's trying to do. Instead, it's more agitating the youth and agitating people to fight more, because the determination now is to end this autocracy. But his whereabouts and his hiding will never solve this problem. What is more ideal now is for him to play his role and declare the country to be in the process of democracy by dissolving his government. I think that's the peaceful route. But to opt in this route, I think it doesn't make any sense and no logic to us, but it also commits us to say we are now faced with another condition of protest. We must scale up and match these conditions of the repression, this condition of the brutality.
Yeah. Apparently the government spokesperson of King Mswati says he might still be in the kingdom, but perhaps that's a separate issue. At least the perception we're getting is that this is some kind of turning point for the people of Eswatini. For the people watching from the outside, help us understand the socio-economic conditions in which this upheaval is actually taking place. A lot of the allegations are centered around how it appears the monarch has centered wealth in the country, and that's left a lot of people in squalor.
Statistics probably prove he's among the top richest kings of people in Africa, and probably is among the richest people in the world. He's a billionaire, and he also controls almost all the assets in the country, which is evident wherever the DPO, which should have been a state company, is controlled by him, it benefits him. He runs a parallel revenue system where the dividends from the industries go through, and also has got entitlement with his family from the state budget, which no one ever even know. He can grab whatsoever he wants, including what he calls his prime ministers, what he calls also his MPs, have even not said to know about how much money he takes from the government as a beneficiary for him. But the situation is quite horrible. Among the whole world, you could imagine, I think you can look at the population pyramid in the country. It can tell you really that this is a disaster, it's a serious situation. Because of how it is shaped, it explains that a lot of things have been happening. But for accurate statistics, I will tell you that our population has been struggling for the past 30 years to reach a target of 1.3 million people. It has been fluctuating between 1 million and 1.3 million over the years, even though there were successful births that were recorded in the whole period of the life. But the births couldn't replace the death. I think that's a horrible situation. People are dying silently of poverty and diseases because of the situation. You know that 70% of our population is poor, and that 70% of the population is in the rural communities, in majority. And those rural communities have got no basics, have got no even medication, have got nothing to support them. But with this family, they have been accumulating so much. He's building hotels. Now he wants to build a new parliament, because in those projects, that's the reason why he gets all the resources, including what he calls activities, which he uses to entertain leaders of the world, are also at the expense of the economy of our country. That's why the horrible situation is that if we keep them poor, then we can rule them. I think that's the notion. That is what the people want to end now. That poverty cannot define the basis of our population now. And this horrible condition and the deaths must come to an end. But they can only come to an end if we end this system. That's why there is such a determination. And the youth has experienced all those kind of things. The youth from the tertiary institution that have graduated over years and failed to get jobs is the youth that has never been able to go to school, that is in the streets, that is shooting now with his police. We have been exposed to massive poverty. We have never ever earned a salary, but others are running up to almost 30 years without even having any salary. And our homes and families that are poor, that cannot even have households, that cannot have homes, proper homes to sleep. Some people do not have even food, some pots to cook for them, the food they have. So it's a very, very horrible situation, and the diseases are crumbling of our population. So I think that is the reason for the determination. If we don't end the system, we will perish in poverty.
So, Kenneth, you make reference to world leaders very quickly. How are you hoping the international community will respond, if you are hoping for any kind of response from the outside?
The important response to the community is to tell Mswati to end the oppression, is to tell Mswati to stop, to allow democracy to unleash. It is also to put more pressure on him, because that is a necessary aspect that the international community can do. But up to so far, we could see very little effort, but we are only determined that the working class people of the world can pronounce themselves and force their government to cut all these that Mswati has with their governments, and cut any relationship that their governments might have with the regime in Swaziland. Otherwise, our effort is simple. We have to shut down the country. We have to lock everything that comes into the country to end this regime, because it is these pipes that keep Mswati arrogant, that keeps him thinking that he can still control our population and rule them, and why scrambling them into this massive poverty. I think there's dual effort. The international community has the role to play, but it is a choice to think those who have got heart, those who have got a feeling, those who have an interest of democracy will do so. But apparently, we have seen nothing so far impressive that can make us to think the international community can play its role, including the media, I would say, has been so silent with the regime, with the situation in the country, but continue to promote the lavish life of Mswati and promote him as the entertainer of the world, when he's doing it at the expense of our people. I think this one thing to be ended. But what we are saying more is that our people must continue to rise and do everything to end the repression. We have capacity. We should end this war, and we must end this bloodthirsty regime and bring peace and democracy.
Right. Kenneth Kunene coming through loud and clear. Thanks very much indeed for your take on this. Really appreciate it. It goes without saying that it's a developing story that we'll keep watching as the details come forth. Kenneth Kunene is the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Swaziland, joining us there from Mpumalanga via our video link. Once again, we are expecting some kind of statement from the government in Eswatini. They are saying in part that King Mswati III is still in that country. We're getting reports, however, that he might have fled. Kenneth Kunene suggesting that, in fact, he might have very well fled to Sandton. Hopefully that will all be clear in the hours to come.